Hello and welcome to Smeg and the Femmes, a podcast to discuss Red Dwarf from a different perspective. I'm Jan Amelie and today I'll be talking about Series 6, Episode 4, which is Emohawk, Polymorph II. That's a mouthful. And I'll be exploring this episode with the help of my guest, who hasn't gone anywhere since Gunmen, and that is Arcanemoody. Hi again.
Hey again.
So, as I said at the outro of the last episode, this is kind of the first instance of the show revisiting a previously successful premise, and basically, I mean, they're right up front about it in the title. It's Polymorph II.
Yes.
And I like that they're so blatant about it. Yes, it's a sequel. Get over it.
Yeah, it's very Hellbound Hellraiser 2. It's it works.
With the opening scene, which kind of a classic kind of Rimmer and Lister scene. I mean, I know Cat is there too, but he doesn't talk much. It's almost a bunk room scene, except obviously with different participants, so to speak. Because if you notice, it's clear from the setup of the scene that it's actually Lister and Cat sharing a bunk room, whereas before it's always been Lister and Rimmer. It's kind of defined their relationship. I mean, obviously they're now on Starbug and space is limited and stuff, but it does kind of make you wonder who in universe made that particular decision.
It is a good question. Yeah, I wondered how much of that came out of when we see in the opening of Sirens, it's very clearly the two biological life forms were in stasis for 200 years. I wondered how much of that had to do with, okay, we've got to catch up to Holly, we've got to catch up to the dwarf. We're going to have to go into stasis to catch up. And was it just a matter of convenience for it to kind of stay like that? But then even revisiting that thought, it's like, wait, so does Rimmer get put in then Rimmer would be put in the fridge every night. That's not ideal. So.
Yeah, exactly, yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's like, does he have his own room? Does he, I think Crichton, the implication is Crichton can sleep anywhere. But where is Rimmer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know Ray wasn't Sirens. He was, turned off. But I mean, now he's clearly back on. So I mean, he's obviously not going to, turn himself into down to Lightbeast status every night. So he must be sleeping somewhere, So
Right.
It's kind of odd.
Yeah. I do also appreciate that even in this, he's up before Lister. He's up before them.
Oh, of course he's up before Lister. He kind of prides himself on it. Although we do get an instance. I mean, there have been instances where he's woken up after Lister, but I mean, it's only when it's been a plot device that Lister actually had a reason to get up early.
Right. I also love that it's, once again, Rimmer's micromanaging. It's like, we're going to do an, emergency scramble.
Yes.
And Lister just can't be bothered.
Yes, it is so very kind of, I mean, so very Rimmer, I mean, he to try and manage everything, even when I mean, obviously he's going to be the one who tries to drag people out of bed to participate in emergency drills. I mean, and yes, you could argue that given their situation, they probably should do emergency drills. But I mean, come on, this is Lister and Cat we're talking about. Of course, they're not going to.
No.
Yeah.
One is a cat and one is Lister. Like, no, they're not doing it.
Yeah, you've got to love the way he's like scramble, and then you get close up of Lister's peaceful expression.
Like, like I've lived with you a long time. I know this isn't real.
And the way he keeps saying scramble, yeah, that'd be nice for bacon and beans. Yeah, it's just funny.
Very in character for all of them.
Exactly, yes, and and then of course they just continue the joke right into the next scene. A world record scrambling time, and then it's over an hour later.
Right.
Yes, it's just funny.
I never noticed the alert, and the alert light is already flashing in the background.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a big feature of Legion. But I think it is. I want to go to Blue Alert and then Red Alert. Blah blah blah. That classic joke about changing the bulb, etc. Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. It's interesting, that Rimmer actually here admits, yeah, okay, I am a petty-minded bureaucratic nincompoop. But, that's what you need to find a dwarf.
Yeah, but we are actually in crisis right now.
Yeah, I mean, he does kind of have a point. It's just the way he's going about it. It's putting everybody's back up because he's Rimmer.
It's like, this is not designed to motivate Lister or Cat.
Yes, Rimmer is just, how do I put this? He's not the the kind of person who can motivate people and lead people. I mean, that's Ace, obviously, and of course we will see that later in the episode.
Yes, we will.
Yes. Well, here he just goes off about. Well, actually, this is also foreshadowing for Ace, because he goes off about how every battle in history has been won by the side with the shortest haircut, and and Crichton just says, "Oh, for a really world-class psychiatrist." Of course, Ace doesn't have what Rimmer would call a sensible haircut. So there you go.
No. Even Rimmer, I think that's, you can't really get a high and tight with those curls, but
Yeah, it's funny that I mean, obviously he's had it dinned into him by his family, and especially his father. That his hair has to be as unnoticed, short and unremarkable as possible. But and then but I mean he's got very naturally curly and woolly and unmanageable hair. Yeah, it's just kind of everything is conspiring against Rimmer, the way he was brought up. Whereas clearly, I just remembered actually, Feline Ranger mentioned that she's pretty sure that Ace's luscious locks are his way of saying "fuck you" to his dad.
Quite probably, and it's interesting because it's just like, Rimmer as a character who knows he has neurotic idiosyncrasies. He knows that they come from an abusive household. He knows that his father was mad, and then of course later he knows that his father wasn't his father at all. So, but they're still there. They're still, he still has them, and it's still, it's like, I will feel better if we go to Red Alert. What? No, I will feel better if we do this drill. I will.
Exactly, yes.
I will feel better if you have a shorter haircut. Like,
yeah, I mean, he just sort of clings, desperately to what he's being told is a way to live his life, and which obviously makes me a tragicomic character, I suppose you'd say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because we get the obligatory Space Corps directive here, and but the thing is, I mean, Rimmer says, "Oh, forget it, forget I was ever born," and Crichton just goes on and on, rubbing in exactly how wrong he was. I mean, I have to say, I think Crichton is probably doing it on purpose there.
He's absolutely doing it on purpose.
I mean, it's not obvious from Robert's acting particularly, but I mean, I guess maybe he's just acting really innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
It's just yeah it's just really such a classic way to open this episode and remind us of all the what all these characters are like. It's funny. And then, of course, they encounter the problem for this episode, which is a Space Corps enforcement probe vehicle, or as Lister concisely calls it, the Space Filth.
Space filth, yes, and the fact that it's again, I want to say similar to what I said in Gunman. This is another natural endpoint for the military-industrial complex. So,
Yes,
which because
exactly, yeah.
yeah, because definitely I think it's well, it's okay. I think it's probably different in the UK because the UK has obviously it's an unarmed police force, but here in the States, within the last 20 years, after the foundation or after the founding of the Department of Homeland Security, we've been facing down, unfortunately, an increasingly militarized versions of local law enforcement. Basically, local law enforcement have long-range weapons, they have AR-15s, they have a lot of militarized weaponry that they did not have back when Red Dwarf was being shot. But it's all very, and you can, argue with the proliferation of, radar cameras and, a lot of police surveillance equipment. Eventually, we would graduate to a law enforcement probe just in space, automated 3 million years past civilization, and still enforcing laws that have long since expired. So.
Yeah, it does kind of make sense, that will be the ultimate end point of it, I mean, it's just an automated thing, but it's still going around deep space and making quite sure that no random people who might have survived can loot any derelicts, because heaven forfend they actually try and survive.
Yeah, yeah. And again specifically it's for looting.
Yeah,
It's oh
I mean,
oh
there's nobody else around apart from Gilson simulants. I mean, there's nobody on these ships that they've been looting. Because obviously derelicts is the kind of definition of deserted. So I mean, yes, okay, technically they may have committed a crime, but I mean, it's the most victimless crime imaginable.
yeah, there's literally there's very few life forms left who would be victimized by something like this. And yeah, so even in the future, even in Red Dwarf, all cops are bastards.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure Lister in particular would agree with that. Having grown up
Yes.
in Liverpool as a working class lad, I mean, I would like to think that in the future, his race wouldn't be so much of an issue, but whether it was or not, he was working class, and and a bit of a tearaway by all counts. So I mean, it's not surprising at all that he would have that attitude to police.
Right, the space filth.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
I also just love his, determination. We don't loot, we don't lose Space Corps derelicts. We just, break in
Oh,
and get what we need.
I mean, you know, I mean, it's a perfectly logical stance. I mean, given the ridiculous situation they're in, stuck out in deep space with nobody else around. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. And there's these again wonderful accidental commentary.
Yes. It might have been a little bit intentional.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's possible. It's possible, but yeah, obviously it doesn't have the same quite the same zing in the UK as it would in the US. Especially given what's happened in the last few decades. As you mentioned. But having said that, I think Craig and Danny in particular, would share Lister's sentiments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh. And particularly because the penalty is death. The
Yes,
penalty for looting
that too.
is execution without trial. That is.
It's just so I don't know, narcissistic.
Yeah, it's. Yeah.
Anyway, it puts them in a really impossible situation because this thing is chasing them. It won't go away, and eventually it hits them, which means they have to crash land on a moon, and they are seriously damaged. They manage to fix most of it, but they desperately need an oxygenation unit, because obviously Cat and Lister have to breathe.
Yes.
Of course, Rimmer is all gleeful about it. What? That's not a problem for me.
It's not a problem for me in Crichton. We're fine.
Yeah, that is so a silly Rimmer. And I absolutely love the joke they have where Quentin says, well, at least Mr. Lister's guitar survived intact. Whoops, no, it didn't.
Not even. Poor Cat. Cat's like, I'm not gonna get stuck with just this guy playing his guitar.
Yeah, it's just a really classic quick joke there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're stuck in a really difficult situation. They desperately need an oxygenation unit, so they have no choice but to go out onto this elf moon and attempt to trade with these hostile life forms.
And I do appreciate that one of the things they offer to trade is Levi jeans.
Oh yes, and Rolex watches. It does feel very 80s to me, but I guess both of those are still, considered valuable.
Yeah, the Swiss watches are very 80s. The Levi jeans, I feel like that was a consistent trade in when the GRU or no, when East Germany was still a thing. Like when the communist, Soviet Warsaw Pact countries, you couldn't get Levi jeans. So
yeah, you can see some influence of that kind of well, you can very much see it in for instance in Backwards, where Lister and Cat think they've encountered Bulgarians and so on. Yeah.
Yes, it's like, oh, they're speaking another language. Oh, and okay, but it's also, I don't know. Again, like you can also say like Backwards. It's like they think they're in Bulgaria, but it's like the only it's literally Manchester. The only difference. They're speaking backwards.
It's a rainy day in Manchester.
Yeah, it's like Robin Doug. Is that a swipe at your own city?
Possibly. Yes, they are. They
Yeah.
are Mancunians, but it's probably one of those cases where we can slag off Manchester, but if you're not Mancunian, don't you dare.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Okay, so the Kinisuawi, who it turns out are a relatively friendly Guelph tribe, who will not skin you alive the moment they see you, at least.
Helpful. Always helpful.
Always helpful, yes.
And I love the implication. Oh, go ahead.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say, you think at first, that they're gonna, sort of get away with it, but then you find out, that no, that was just to get into the hut. The real bartering starts now. Anyway, sorry, you were going to say?
No, it's like I love that the introduction of the Emohawk Um, and the idea that like, it's a polymorph that's spayed at birth and domesticated. It's kind of this it's a lovely idea of like, oh my gosh, the idea that a polymorph would be like a toy Yorkie.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Or
basically the Gulf chief's pet. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, because it's clearly it's specifically the chief's pet. Like there's not a dozen of these running around. It's specifically the highest member of the tribe. That's their pet. So
Yeah, it's just an interesting twist on it. I mean, to be honest,
yeah.
I've seen uh, this episode criticised quite a lot, sort of lack of originality. But I mean, I actually think it puts an interesting, different twist on the concept of the polymorph. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with going back to the same idea if you can do a variation on it.
Yeah, and it's also it's interesting in the fact that like it's the first time we see, I think, is this the first time we see like, some of the original character concepts that Rob and Doug created, like the Gelfs, the Simulants, and the polymorph, seeing two of like the different ones in the same scene, or the
Yeah.
idea that or just the idea that these are things that in this universe we've created, they do interact, they do end up in the same environment a lot of time, and it's this culture interprets it or reframes ownership or interaction this way. I think that's you could say it's not original, but it's like, as a writer, I'm like, I love that. That's a nice little bit of world building.
Yeah, exactly. World building is a good way of putting it. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
for this kind of thing, I mean, fans like us who enjoy writing fan fiction, we're all over this kind of world building stuff.
Oh yeah.
It gives us more to work with. I mean, I guess if you're not into fic and you just like watching the episodes as they are on screen, it wouldn't have the same appeal. But I mean, I guess possibly, yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I feel like people who write RPGs would really enjoy this detail. It's my wife does Dungeons and Dragons, and she also writes modules and does different things. And we had this whole conversation. This is slightly outside of Red Dwarf, but we were having a discussion around the VHS horror series.
Mhm.
And there's some pretty consistent use of different sort of well-known tropes and then also created tropes. So like creatures of unknown origin that pop up in the various installments. And I think we were in like the third or fourth film, and she had a notepad out. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm writing out a character sheet. Because I think there's enough unique creatures, this would make an interesting RPG. I'm like, okay, cool. And it's just a lovely, yeah, we can talk about like, yes, this was series 6. Yes, they were incredibly pressed for time, so they revisited some character concepts that they'd used before and some creature concepts that they'd used before, but they used them really in a really entertaining, amusing way. So
Exactly. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess series
So
7 and 8, I can understand the criticism more because bringing back Dwayne in I think it's back in the red very briefly, that
yeah.
does kind of smack of desperation, but the way he's used here in this episode, I really don't have a problem with it at all.
No, I think this is perfectly fine. I think it's, and it's actually kind of it's a more interesting use of Cat having been attacked by a polymorph. Like the previously, I think it took his vanity, and
Yeah.
Danny's the reaction that Cat has is sadly maybe a little bit of a racist stereotype, maybe a little bit just
You mean in polymorph?
in
Yeah.
polymorph,
Yeah,
yes.
I never really thought of that until I heard someone on another podcast say that they thought it was. I don't know. I've never heard Danny refer to it as such, but I mean,
No,
maybe
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that might have influenced the request, in Dimension Jump. Look, I mean, I don't know if it's actually him, but somebody said, look, let's not have the alternate version of Cat be a snobby cleaner. Let him be a priest.
Yeah, I think it was both Craig and Danny who approached Doug about that in Dimension Jump. But
Yeah.
that is true.
I mean, I think
yeah.
as Craig said, it's not a question of them being deliberately racist. It's just they weren't thinking about it because being white, they never had occasion to think about it. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like having those cognitive, like just like, and they were receptive to suggestions, and they were receptive to. Also, I love. This is another like a little bit off topic for this episode, or but I do appreciate that Rob and Doug seem to draw a lot of inspiration from what the guys talked about being just like conversations they had between takes or conversations they had at lunch or different sort of things around that, and so having uh some of Chris's idiosyncrasies bleed into Rimmer's characterization or Rimmer's backstory. Same with Craig, same with Danny. It's like I think that's really, again, as a writer, I find that really, I think that's really creative, and I think that's really interesting. And it encourages collaboration, which I also appreciate.
I mean, all the various things. I mean, this lovely story about Craig saying, "I'm worried about being typecast as a slob," whilst eating his lunch off the table, apparently. To be fair, I think Craig has more or less escaped that fate. He's had a lot of success in other areas like Coronation Street, and he's a very successful DJ as well.
Yeah, on anytime seeing him DJ and seeing him like in interviews, where he's clearly just come from like a BBC recording, it's just like he's neat as a pin.
Yeah, he is actually very, very, very sort of natty in real life, and well, not that he ever looks particularly fat on the screen, but he's also slimmer in real life too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's true what they say about the camera putting more weight on you. It's definitely the case in his case.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also interesting, like when you having seen videos from Dimension Jump, the convention, and then also seeing them in interviews and seeing them in panel discussions. Both Craig and Chris seem to have that, just that very natural magnetism.
Yeah,
just
they definitely have
both
charisma. I think I'd say, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I think I would, if I was ever in the same like space, I wouldn't know. It's like, oh, I can't talk now.
I have actually been to Dimension Jump multiple times, and somehow I've managed to be in their proximity and even talk to them briefly. But I must admit, when it comes to Craig, all I've ever been able to do is sort of whilst not looking at him, can you sign this, please? While not looking him in the eye, and then sort of thank you very much, and then creep off.
Yeah. It's like I've had conventions, usually like if I'm in a costume or if I'm wearing a sign or doing something, I can kind of talk to people. It's when we're off recording, I'll tell you a story about the Fifth Doctor, who I met at a convention like almost 10 years ago now. But yeah, I think just like faced with Craig or like Chris, particularly Chris, I'd be like, I think I would. It's just like, and yeah, they both. It's but sort of circling back. It's interesting to sort of the writing process and the way they created character concepts inspired by the actors and by their both their performances and their off-screen interactions. I think that's that's very unique and it's really interesting.
Definitely, yes. I mean, it really is. I mean, I know the cast sort of jokes that the writers just sort of stole their personalities, but I mean, it's kind of more complicated than that, But I mean, but yeah, the way their personalities have influenced the show, it's just a lovely sort of collaborative process, which has made the show more interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, classic example, for instance, they found out Danny could roller skate, so they put in a scene where the cat does that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's finding out not only can he roller skate, he was he was one of the dancers in the original Starlight Express cast.
Yes, that was where he
Like,
picked up the
oh,
the roller skating skills. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Danny. Well, they're all multi-talented. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. Okay, well, so whilst we're on the topic of Dimension Jump,
Yes.
someone who's been a guest there. Unfortunately, it was just before I started attending Dimension Jump, so I've never actually seen him. But someone who has been a guest there is Stephen Wickham, who plays the Guelph Bride.
Yes.
And as anyone who's watched the documentary will know, I mean, he's quite upfront and makes no bones about the fact that he genuinely does find Craig attractive.
Yes. And it's not even method. I mean, obviously he's a professional actor. He's been doing, and he's specifically, I think, a British TV actor. Like he's, what Patrick Troughton called the jobbing actors, where, you show up and you do like a Z car, you do a couple episodes of The Bill, you do a couple episodes of another police procedural, and you're just kind of on call for these things. Hence the role of the Guelph Bride. I think he got called like a day or two before.
Yeah,
And it's just
one of those actors who sort of pops up from time to time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's clearly
they
having.
did bring it back. Sorry, in the Dave
Yes.
to be the bed chief and Entangled. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do love that, like, between Emohawk and between Entangled in Series 10, his appearances in Red Dwarf consist of lusting after 2 of the 4 co-leads.
Yeah, isn't it? Yes. I mean,
Like,
I know the Guelph Bride is supposed to be a woman, but the bed chief in Entangled is definitely male.
that's definitely a dude. Yes.
Kind of wonder
I also,
if he actually requested that, to be honest. But yeah, yeah.
it's a good question. Yeah, I do. Oh, he's well done. He's so well done in that role. Also, I do appreciate 2 other things in like the negotiation scene before the wedding, like Rimmer saying G spot is always amusing to me. I don't know why. And then also Lister saying she's obviously an Aries. I don't do Aries. And then of course we know from the cast commentary that Chris Berry is an Aries.
Oh right, that had never occurred to me. I wonder if that was some kind of dig at Chris. I mean, I can't.
They talk about that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, they talk about that in the commentary, and Chris is like, "Yeah, but I don't know if they would know that." And Robert's like, "They know everything."
I've listened to the commentary, but not recently, so I'd forgotten about that a little bit.
Yeah, they know everything. Like that's definitely. It's like that's a dig at Chris, and
I suppose it makes sense in character too, because obviously in universe, Rimmer and Lister are supposed to be complete opposites.
yeah.
But anyway, so of course,
Yeah.
Lister was like, no way, absolutely no way, smash cut, okay way.
Yeah. No. Smash cut wedding.
And it's a good sneaky plan they come up with, and it might actually have worked if his girlfriend had been a bit less eager.
Yeah, and they might have been able to get away with it. Oh.
Yeah. I always when I watch this scene, I find it funny, but I try to forget, the fact that in Last Human, Doug kind of expands upon it in a less than ideal way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Doug.
He turns it from a slightly uncomfortable scene which ends at exactly the moment when it should end to an actual rape. So oops.
Right.
Yes. I don't know why he felt the need to do that, but well, he did.
Yeah, it's some weird psychology in our British sci-fi writers, but
Again, I mean, I could equally
yeah.
ask Rob Grant why he felt the need to include an underage sex scene in Backwards, but there what he did.
Right, and why is there,
Of course, you do
it's
realise, Rob, that you are single-handedly responsible for the lack of explicit catfic.
Oh, the chase scene is just beautiful. I do love that. Like, when the scene in the show ends exactly when it should. I'm going to slip into something more comfortable.
Yes.
It's called Starbuck.
Yes.
Change your plans, leg
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the way it ends is absolutely classic, and very, very, very funny. It ends exactly when it should, and they cut to a joke, and then they get out of there. and,
Yeah.
and then of course the girl bride gets one more line. Men, they're all bastards.
Yes. And they took what they wanted, and they left, and
Yeah.
and again, like the idea of the Emohawk being a domesticated pet, it gets even funnier when you think of it like, oh my god, you just you sent your little toy Yorkie after that.
Oh yeah, when you think about it like that, it's hilarious. Yeah, I just got the image of a tiny little Yorkie chasing after them. Oh god, that's really cute, actually.
Mm-hmm. But the fact that they've encountered a polymorph before also makes, the whole paranoia around what's the polymorph, what's not, what's it.
Yeah, I was going to say. I was going to say, yeah, because I mean, I think okay, they're doing they're doing a twist on 2 earlier episodes, Polymorph and Dimension Jump, but I think they
Mm-hmm.
get away with another reason they get away with doing the twist, doing a sequel to Polymorph is because they already know what polymorph is. They've already suffered it. They know quite what it's capable of. So it turns them into nervous wrecks.
Yes. And now Escape has all of these other stakes attached.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And of course, because they're nervous wrecks, the Emohawk is able to sneak on board Starbug disguised as Lister's hat.
yes.
And just to hammer it home, they have Lister berating Cat about, see, all you have to do is keep your wits about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the continuity because we never see that hat again.
Oh yes, of course, yes. That is a good observation.
Yeah.
So now, of course, to the fan pleasing. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, I am a fan. Please me. The fan pleasing return of Dwayne and Ace. Starting with Dwayne.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm actually when I was rewatching the Dwayne bits, I was actually really interested, in how much the revelations in the Promised Land about Cat as a younger Cat, as a teenager, I think.
Mm-hmm.
How much it cast on Dwayne Dibley, because it makes it retrospectively a lot more poignant.
It does, and I think it at least, confirms that the idea of back to reality, the Dwayne character in that hallucination, it's not just kind of out of nowhere. It's not the squid. It's not the despair squid. It's all of these, we've talked a lot about, that obviously Sebastian and Billy and the concept of Lister and Rimmer being, brothers in this, this, this sort of being sort of a shared despair almost between them, or, but I think certainly more of that originates with Rimmer. But the idea of Dwayne sort of stemming from Kat's own psyche a bit, I think is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, because originally it just comes across as the cat is so shallow that losing his cool is the worst thing that could happen to him. But I mean, in TPL we find out, you know, that he was actually abandoned by the rest of the cats, including his older brother, you know, for not being cool enough. And
Yes.
I assume he was a teenager at the time. I mean, they have that is kind of a bit of a retcon from Waiting for God, where it was implied that he was actually born after the cats left, you know. But I mean, well, I guess Doug decided to change the continuity. I mean,
Yeah.
it does give Cat more depth of character at least.
Yeah. And I think that was another kind of good change. They've made some, like, obviously they made a couple tweaks here and there from series 1. It's interesting to see, like, this far out, sort of making a slight adjustment to the continuity there. But yeah, it's nice to kind of like, oh, we have this extra little bit, it's also the egocentrism, of Cat is not necessarily because he was born after, both of the red and blue ships departed. It's, actually we've got context. It adds context.
It does add
So,
context, yeah. There is actually a deleted scene where Dwayne actually asks Ace, "Do you think it's normal for a 33-year-old man to have a yo-yo and play with it?" You know, and then I suddenly remembered. Of course, back in series 1, Cat does play with a yo-yo.
yes, oh my god, he does.
Oh, so you know, clearly, Cat does have insecurity. It's just very, very deeply buried.
I think he's easily distracted away from it,
Yes.
but he also keeps himself distracted away from it in
Yeah,
many
and of
ways.
course, in that it's really a shame they cut that bit because it also has Ace, you know, who is trying to bring himself to kill Dwayne and say, "I can't do it, damn it! It'd be like garroting Bambi."
Oh, I love that moment. I love that. It's like that's such a it. We could say it's like, oh, this is Ace, but it's like, no, this is also Rimmer. Oh, Rimmer also has sentimentality around
Yes,
innocent creatures
yes, you know,
that
it's
he
just, you know,
that he is probably less than aware of.
it's just a nice moment because I mean it's a shame they cut it because I mean a lot of people have said you know it's really out of character for Ace to be prepared to kill Dwayne, you know, but I mean it's established in the deleted scene that he can't go through with it, so you know.
Right. Right. And it's also, again, I would argue that, like, well, this is our version of Rimmer in, you know, sort of robbed of the hesitation, robbed of the cowardice, but even in the deleted scene, we see he has a bit of some hesitation remaining, and it's rooted in sentimentality
It
and rooted
exactly,
in,
yes. I mean, it's. I mean,
so,
I really find it interesting. You know what these versions of Ace and Dwayne tell us about Cat and Rimmer. You know, I mean, it's you know, it's kind of ambiguous. You know, because I mean, obviously, Ace is kind of not really Ace. He's Rimmer's idea of Ace. You know,
yeah.
and whereas Cat, you know, it's more ambiguous because even though his hair changes, which hair and teeth change, which they shouldn't really, but let's go with it because you know it's Red Dwarf, you know. But he instantly becomes clumsy and
Right.
uncool, and his taste in clothing it becomes Dwayne's taste in clothing, you know. So I mean, he has clearly has changed psychologically. I mean, I guess a lot of this, you know, is they're just doing it, you know, for the fun and for the jokes, you know. But it's interesting to explore in fanfic, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's the idea of, like, your anxieties centering around on I don't know, you could even, I think as a writer you could talk about, there's a thing called associated regression. So
Mhm.
it's like, if you're around people that you were like when you were younger, and you differ to communication styles, that you were most comfortable at in that period of your life. I guess robbed of what he feels is his cool. You know, it differs to, you know, I need, an anorak made entirely of polyester.
Yeah, yeah. I have to say, actually, it's interesting, you know, that in the Promised Land, Cat wears an outfit which is like Cat cosplaying Dwayne Dibley. I mean, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which does, you know, very much underline, even though they don't actually, obviously they don't say it on screen. Nobody mentions Dwayne on screen, you know, but it's obvious, you know, to a long-time fan, you know, that they're implying, you know, that yes, Dwayne does exist, clearly does exist deep inside Cat, you know, yeah. So, you know, of course, Cat does actually have some of the same taste as Dwayne. You know, it's just he's put this veil of cool upon himself, you know, and he clings to it.
Yeah. And by the same token, when we think about, well, I guess it's not quite the same because Rimmer is being a hologram. His physicality can change at the ready with his altered perspective. So it's like, you know, the hair changing would be consistent with, you know, I'm a hologram. You know, it's we can change our hair whenever we want.
I mean, it makes sense in Rimmer's case because obviously he can change to he changes hairstyle to an ace type thing. With Dwayne, you just have to sort of go with it, you know. Come on, this is Red Dwarf. You know, it's funny. We can suspend our disbelief on that one.
Yeah. I am slightly fascinated by the fact that he gave his like anxious, all of his bundles of anxieties around being uncool. You know, via the hallucination and back to reality, it has a name. He's like named this side of himself. It's very like I think of like Rick Mayall's writing. Rick Mayall always tended to create characters of people he was afraid he might be.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So it's like let's pour that over here, or put that over here, and give it a different name from me, and we're good. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I mean that absolutely makes sense. You know, I mean, of course, with Rimmer, you know, I mean, how long have you got, you know, all these different versions of himself, and he hates every single one of them.
Every single one. Even the ideal. Even the
even eight,
even the
yes.
yeah, even the ideal version of himself. He still can't, you know, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Side note, I know Chris Berry is not fond of this wig, but I like it.
I think it's okay. I mean, obviously, I mean, it's not as good as a one-dimensional job, but I mean, I think it does a job, you know. To be honest, I mean, if I was going to criticise any wig, it would be the one in Stuck Me a Clipper. That one kind of stands out because it's a different colour, you know, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, that one is very blonde. It's very Richie Sambora. This one is a bit more, you know, he's still got the left side parting. It still looks good.
I did want to I just gonna quote Veronica Rich, you know, from a post she made on Tumblr about this particular episode, and she said she thinks that the reason that this version of Ace in Emohawk is not quite right. I mean, you know, obviously it's not actually Ace; it's Rimmer's idea of what Ace is, you know, and since Rimmer saw Ace as a bit ridiculous, you know, and one-sided, you know, and hope ridiculously self-sacrificing, etc., etc. I mean, that's why this version of Ace is slightly off.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think that's, you know, he's also it's Rimmer's single-mindedness while ignoring some pretty glaring red flags, which he does tend to do in his ordinary just interactions with people. Here it's okay, you know, his first priority is to keep Lister alive. You're on this side, I'm on this one. The polymorph's over here. I'll just, you know, sacrifice myself and make sure Cat doesn't suffer.
Yes, and of course, I mean, you know, I mean, there's no getting away from the fact, you know, that how do I put this? You know, his Rimmer's absolute desperation to protect Lister at all costs. Obviously, it's incredibly slashy, you know.
It's incredibly slashy, and there's a kernel of something sweet in that interaction. You know, again, the punchline is, you know, he won't, you know, Cat won't suffer. I'll snap his neck when he's not looking.
Yes.
But But yeah, but the motivation at the center of that is very, it's like, the idea that, like, Lister takes priority. No. No. It's always Lister.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, it's just, he justifies it by saying to him, "Well, you're the last human being alive, old love, and frankly, you're just too damn valuable to risk." I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could imagine the original Ace saying that to him, but I mean, I don't know. It's just so tender.
Yeah. It's a lovely, and even the, interactions with Dwayne, he lets Dwayne go and, like, get his stuff. It's
Yeah,
it's like, oh,
that is so sweet. Yeah, I mean, I do want to say, the way in the sort of scene where Dwayne goes into this "just let me check" speech and reels off all this stuff that he absolutely has to have with him. It's very sweet. It's sort of geekiness incarnate.
mhm. It's a lovely, I brought, it's thermos, sandwiches, it's telephone money
Yeah, and one single fit condom.
in one, because you never know. And I didn't realize I knew that whole speech until just this moment. Oh my.
Yes, it's just
That is how often I've watched this.
I mean, I am not autistic, but I mean, it does kind of come across as very autistic. I mean, was that just me?
It's a bit, and it's a bit, sort of. It's a lot of neurodivergent people. I think we have that. I have that when I go traveling. Certainly, it's, I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to do this to decorate my hotel room. So
Yeah,
we're going on a long trip. I need to make sure I have all of my things.
exactly.
So
Yes. I
yeah,
do understand that. I mean, I want to
yeah,
make sure he's got absolutely everything he can need. I mean, okay, in the situation, what he actually needs them for is questionable, but still.
right.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, so yeah, as Chris points out, you couldn't really get to more contrasting characters than Ace and Dwayne. It's very funny.
Hmm.
Yeah, and also you notice Dwayne. I mean, yes, he's naive, he's nerdy, but I mean, he's not a coward. He's very eager to help.
Right. Well, and I think actually even him having, like, a list of things that he would have on his person, that is what helps them find the Emohawk.
Yes, it
It's
is
like,
indeed. Yes, I mean, of course, he suddenly notices. Hold on, I've only got one thermos. Where did the second one come from?
ah, and-
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that Dwayne's geekiness actually helps them locate the Emohawk.
it does, yeah. The more we talk about it, the more, like, this episode gets a bad rap. It's well done. It's really, the there's not a surplus piece.
Oh, I
You can
absolutely agree. I
again,
mean, when I was watching it, and rewatching it and making notes, and thinking to myself, well, why is this episode considered, one of the weakest ones of the ones written by both Rob and Doug? I mean, it's got all this really interesting character stuff.
hmm and everything serves the plot. Everything, I've got the video going, while we're talking about it, but it just got to the scene where, he figures out where the Emohawk is. The Emohawk turns itself into a grenade, and Rimmer literally jumps on it to keep Lister from being harmed.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I mean, I suppose Dimension Jump Ace probably would have done that. But I mean, this isn't Dimension Jump Ace. This is Rimmer minus one emotion.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, we get this little sting in the tail. Well, I don't mean the bit with Dwayne. I mean just before when Rimmer as Ace says, "Well, can I stay as I am for 24 hours before I revert to that ghastly Marat?"
hmm
Oh dear.
It's like, what are you gonna do for 24 hours, Rimmer?
It opens the door for book writers, and they have indeed stepped through it.
hmm hmm But
Yeah.
yeah, I like this episode. I think Yeah.
I think what it's it's endearing. I mean, it works. I mean, yes, it's a sequel to two different previous episodes, Polymorph and Dimension Jump. But I mean, it gets new character stuff out of it, so it's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then of course they end on a joke, with Dwayne's klutziness. He manages to freeze his crewmates because whoops.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a nice joke to end on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if him saying what a dibbly is, like maybe that's the weak point. Maybe that's the one weak point. But other than that, like, oh.
Yes.
Feel like you could have easily just had him be like, oh no.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You're right. You're right there. I mean, maybe that's what sort of sets up the the law of diminishing returns. Bring back Dwayne. Although to be fair, they don't really. I mean, they brought him back in that DVD extra. Can't smeg, won't smeg. So I mean, although actually I enjoy him in that as well. I think the one which was really a step.
Yeah.
Well, the only one which was really a step too far was the Dibley family joke back in the Red. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit much. I feel like they, again, like, when we look at that episode, I think we could, it's certainly an argument could be made that, it's they could have had a better cover that wasn't that.
Especially since Kat hates being Dwayne Dibley, so having him suggest oh, let's dress up as the Dibley family is a bit out of character, but practically everything,
Yeah.
in Back in the Red is out of character, so
Yeah.
So what rankings would you give them out of 10?
Ranking overall out of 10 for this one, I would say kind of holding at the same level as Gunman of the Apocalypse. I think overall it's still like an 8.5. Loses some points for what a dibbly. Losing some points for that. And maybe, somehow losing the Ace wig between, seasons 4 and season 6.
Yeah.
Series. Sorry. American.
Yes.
But and Slashy, I actually think this one's higher than Gunman. This is, probably also like an 8.5 just for Rimmer's single-mindedness around keeping Lister alive, and then
Yeah, I mean,
also, getting Chris Berry to say G-spot.
oh yes.
I'm a fan of that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, this episode gets a bad rap on me. I think I'm going to give it overall out of 10. They don't know 7.5, maybe 8. I mean, I'm only penalising it because there are other better episodes. But I mean, it's a perfectly respectable episode, and it's a lot of fun. And for slashiness.
Yeah.
And for slashiness, I think 8 out of 10 because it's the presence of Ace just immediately bumps the slashiness way up. I mean, the way he is around Lister, and to be fair, the way Lister is around him. I mean, Lister does react, and goes all what a guyish again,
Yeah, he's got that swoony bit around Ace and Rimmer as Ace, and
Yeah,
so.
it's just a lot of fun.
I think once again we get to Series 7, I think you could make an argument, for a callback to this one, where this arguably Lister has seen Rimmer as Ace and believes he could take up the mantle and go off and do the job.
No, it's a good. I hadn't thought of it from that angle before, but yeah, that is a good point. I mean, he has seen Rimmer do it. So I mean, maybe he thinks he obviously thinks if he can make Rimmer less bitter and think better of himself, maybe he actually could pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, of course,
That's a wonderful.
Sorry, I'm just going to. Of course, he actually the AC actually encounters tells them, that he used to be like Rimmer and he managed to do it. So yeah. And that wraps up this episode of Smeg and the Femmes. Thank you to Hologamet for technical assistance, and also thank you to my guest, Arcanemoody. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, listeners, if you'd like to give us feedback, you can do so on Tumblr or Discord, on the posts where I'll be linking to this episode. You can also email us at smegandthefemmes@gmail.com. And my customary announcement that you can also find earlier episodes of the podcast if you just search for Smeg and the Femmes on YouTube. The next episode we'll be covering has a title which sounds like a dream to some and a nightmare to others. It is, of course, Rimmerworld. I hope you'll join us then. But for now, goodbye.